The neon-drenched corridors of Nexus Station pulsed with a gritty, vibrant life. A cacophony of alien languages, the hum of spacecraft engines, and the clang of distant machinery created a constant, throbbing background noise. Matt Reeves stepped off his battered freighter, the Stardust Drifter, his worn leather jacket creaking as he adjusted the laser pistol at his hip. The station's artificial gravity tugged at him, a constant reminder that he was far from Earth. Nexus was a chaotic symphony of intergalactic culture. Tentacled cephalon haggled with reptilian sands over crates filled with wriggling, bioluminescent flora. A group of ethereal luminites floated by, their translucent bodies glowing softly in the dim light, casting eerie shadows that danced on the grimy metal walls. This was Nexus, a melting pot of galactic cultures, a haven for the desperate, and a place where anyone could disappear, or reinvent themselves, if they had the credits and the will. Matt's comlink buzzed, cutting through the ambient noise. He ducked into a shadowy alcove, the flickering neon sign of a nearby gambling den casting long, distorted shadows around him. Activating the device, he heard a gruff voice crackle through the speaker. "Reeves, your target is Zorg. Notorious arms dealer, last seen in the lower levels. Watch yourself. He's got friends in low places." "Roger that," Matt muttered, ending the transmission. He'd been tracking Zorg for months, chasing the slippery bastard across half the galaxy. Now, the arms dealer was within reach. The thrill of the hunt surged through him, a familiar cocktail of adrenaline and anticipation. But first, he needed information. The lower levels of Nexus were a labyrinth of dark alleys, clandestine bars, and illicit marketplaces, and he couldn't navigate them blind. He made his way through the throng, his senses on high alert. A pair of hulking Grokner brushed past him, their tusks glinting menacingly in the dim light. Matt kept his hand close to his pistol, his eyes scanning the crowd for any sign of trouble. He pushed open the door to a dingy bar called The Edge of the Universe, a place whose name was less a poetic statement and more an accurate description of its location and clientele. The acrid smell of alien tobacco, cheap liquor, and unidentifiable spices assaulted his nostrils. His eyes adjusted to the dim interior, revealing a scene of smoky chaos. Various species huddled around tables, their conversations a low murmur that blended with the pulsing music emanating from a battered sound system. But Matt's gaze was immediately drawn to the figure behind the bar. She was the most striking woman he'd ever seen, alien or otherwise. Her skin was a deep, mesmerizing blue that seemed to shimmer in the low light, like the surface of a tranquil ocean under a moonlit sky. Her eyes, large and expressive, held a hint of sadness, a depth that intrigued him. She was undeniably alien, yet hauntingly beautiful in a way that transcended species. A cascade of dark, braided hair framed her face, adorned with intricate silver beads that chimed softly as she moved. Matt sauntered up to the bar, his usual confidence faltering slightly as those captivating eyes met his. "What's your poison, stranger?" the blue-skinned beauty asked, her voice musical and teasing, tinged with a slight, unidentifiable accent. "Whatever's strong and won't kill me," Matt replied with a roguish grin. "I'm Matt, by the way." "Jew," she said, her lips curving into a smile that made his heart skip a beat. The smile softened the contours of her face, revealing a hint of vulnerability beneath her cool exterior. "And don't worry, I save the lethal stuff for special customers." She winked, then turned to mix his drink with fluid grace. Her movements were mesmerizing, each gesture precise and elegant. As Jew worked, Matt found himself captivated by the play of light on her blue skin. He'd seen countless alien species in his travels, but none quite like her. There was an ethereal quality about her, a sense of otherworldliness that drew him in. "So, Jew," he said, leaning on the bar, "I'm looking for some information. Heard of a guy named Zorg?" Jew's movements faltered, almost imperceptibly. She paused, her eyes narrowing slightly as she considered his question. "Zorg, can't say I have. But then again, I hear a lot of names in this place." She slid a glass filled with a shimmering purple liquid towards him. Why don't you tell me what brings a handsome bounty hunter like yourself to our little corner of the galaxy? Matt raised an eyebrow, impressed. That obvious, huh? Ju laughed, a sound like tinkling crystals. The gun, the jacket, the way you carry yourself, plus, we don't get many humans out here unless they're running from something, or chasing someone. Fair enough, Matt conceded, taking a sip of his drink. It burned pleasantly going down, leaving a fruity aftertaste that lingered on his tongue. And what about you? Something tells me you're not from around here either. A shadow passed over Ju's face, momentarily eclipsing her beauty. She looked away, her gaze drifting towards the bustling crowd. Let's just say I needed a change of scenery. Nexus is as good a place as any to disappear for a while. Matt nodded, recognizing a kindred spirit. He'd been there himself, running from his past, seeking anonymity in the vastness of the galaxy. I've been there. Sometimes, the past is best left behind. Their eyes met again, and for a moment, the noisy bar faded away. There was a connection here, unexpected but undeniable. A shared sense of being outsiders, of carrying burdens they couldn't easily share. Matt found himself returning to the edge of the universe night after night, ostensibly to gather intel on Zorg, but increasingly drawn to the enigmatic bartender with the sad eyes and quick wit. He would spend hours nursing the strange alien concoctions Ju mixed, listening to her stories and sharing his own. As the week progressed, their conversations deepened. Ju spoke of her homeworld, Lana, a place of rigid traditions and stifling expectations. I couldn't breathe there, she confided one night, her voice low and filled with a hint of pain. Every aspect of our lives is controlled, even our relationships. I needed freedom. Matt shared stories of his own adventures, carefully edited to omit the darker aspects of his profession. He found himself opening up more than he had in years, drawn in by Ju's genuine interest and sharp insights. She saw through his tough exterior, recognizing the loneliness and the yearning for connection that he kept hidden beneath layers of cynicism. On the seventh night, Matt stumbled into the bar, clutching his side. A vibroblade had sliced through his jacket, leaving a painful gash. His informant had turned out to be working for Zorg, and the meeting had quickly devolved into violence. He'd barely managed to escape with his life. Ju's eyes widened as she saw the blood seeping through his fingers. Without a word, she vaulted over the bar and was at his side in an instant. Come on, tough guy, she murmured, supporting his weight. Let's get you patched up. She led him through a back door and up a narrow, winding staircase to a small apartment above the bar. The room was sparsely furnished but clean, with a large window offering a breathtaking view of the starfield beyond the station. The colored lights of distant nebulas painted the room in shifting hues of violet, crimson, and emerald. As Ju tended to his wound with gentle hands, Matt found himself studying her face in the soft light of her apartment. She looked even more beautiful, her blue skin taking on an almost ethereal quality. You're staring, Ju said softly, not looking up from her work. Her fingers danced across his skin, applying a soothing balm that eased the throbbing pain. Can you blame me? Matt replied, his voice husky with pain and something else, something he couldn't quite name. Ju's eyes met his, and the air between them crackled with tension. The unspoken attraction that had been simmering between them for days now threatened to boil over. Matt, she whispered, her voice barely audible above the hum of the station. I should warn you, my people, we don't do casual. When we choose a mate, it's intense. Matt reached up, cupping her face in his hand. His thumb traced the delicate curve of her cheekbone, feeling the soft texture of her skin. Who said anything about casual? Their lips met, and the universe seemed to shift on its axis. The pent-up longing, the shared vulnerability, the undeniable attraction, it all exploded in a kiss that was both tender and passionate. They fell onto the bed, clothes being shed with frantic urgency. Neither of them was prepared for the intensity of the moment, for the way their bodies seemed to crave each other. In the afterglow, as Ju's breathing deepened into sleep, Matt gazed out at the stars. He'd come to Nexus hunting a dangerous criminal, but he'd found something he didn't even know he was looking for. A connection, a spark of hope in the vast darkness of space. As sleep claimed him, his last thought was that maybe, just maybe, the universe had more in store for him than he'd ever imagined. Little did he know, the real adventure was just beginning. Matt stirred, his body aching from the previous night's exertions, both the fight and the passionate encounter with Ju. He blinked, disoriented by the unfamiliar surroundings. The events of the night came rushing back, and a smile tugged at his lips. That smile quickly faded as he registered the panic in Ju's vivid eyes. She hovered over him, her blue skin paled with worry. Oh no, she muttered, her hands fluttering over his body. It's worse than I thought. You're awake. Matt propped himself up on his elbows, wincing as his wound protested. Of course, I'm awake. What's wrong? Ju's antennae twitched nervously. You should be in deep hibernation. This is all my fault. I should have warned you about the physiological effects of mating with a Linean before. Before Matt could formulate a response, Ju had leapt from the bed. She rummaged through drawers, muttering under her breath. Matt watched, bemused, as she returned with an assortment of strange objects, crystals, herbs, and what looked suspiciously like a ritualistic mask. Ju, what exactly are you planning to do with those? He asked. She paused, crystals clinking in her hands. Heal you, of course. You're clearly suffering from sleep deprivation due to our coupling. Don't worry, I know some traditional Linean remedies. Matt couldn't help but chuckle, which only seemed to increase Ju's distress. Sweetheart, I hate to break it to you, but humans don't hibernate after sex. This is normal for us. Ju's jaw dropped. But that's impossible. How do you bond? How do you process the experience? We process it just fine while conscious, Matt said, reaching for her hand. Come here, let me explain. But Ju was already shaking her head. No, there must be something wrong. I need a second opinion. Before Matt could stop her, she had thrown on a robe and dashed out the door. He flopped back on the bed with a groan. Well, this is going to be interesting. Over the next few hours, Matt dressed and attempted to go about his day, all while being subjected to increasingly bizarre cures for his supposed affliction. Ju had apparently consulted half the station's population, and each seemed to have their own idea of how to induce hibernation in a human. A cephalon merchant insisted on wrapping Matt in bioluminescent seaweed. A Groran shaman attempted to realign his sleep chakras with pungent incense. The final straw came when a Lumite suggested a ritual dance with moon worms, slimy, phosphorescent creatures that left trails of glowing mucus. Enough. Matt bellowed, dodging a particularly enthusiastic moon worm wriggler. He grabbed Ju by the arm and dragged her back into the apartment, locking the door behind them. Once inside, he turned to face her, his expression a mix of exasperation and amusement. Ju, I appreciate your concern, but you need to understand, humans don't hibernate after mating. We just don't. It's not how we're built. Ju's antennae drooped. But how can that be? On Lana, the hibernation period is crucial. It's when mates bond on a cellular level, when their bodies and souls intertwine. Matt's expression softened. He reached out, cupping Ju's face in his hands. Maybe we do things differently, but that doesn't mean what happened between us wasn't real or meaningful. For a moment, it seemed like understanding dawned in Ju's eyes. Then she pulled away, shaking her head. No, this is all wrong. I need time to think. She fled the apartment, leaving Matt alone and frustrated. He ran a hand through his hair, sighing heavily. The hunt for Zorg suddenly seemed like the simpler challenge. Over the next few days, Matt threw himself into his work, trying to ignore the ache in his chest whenever he thought of Jew. He tracked Zorg's movements through Nexus Station's underworld, piecing together the arms dealer's operation bit by bit. What he didn't notice was the flash of blue skin in the shadows, the worried eyes following his every move. Jew, torn between her feelings for Matt and her ingrained beliefs, couldn't stay away. She trailed him through the station's seedy underbelly, convinced that his affliction would lead him into danger. It all came to a head in a dingy warehouse on Nexus's lower levels. Matt had finally cornered one of Zorg's lieutenants, a surly Saren named Krax. He was seconds away from getting the information he needed when a clatter from the shadows startled both men. Jew stumbled into view, having knocked over a stack of crates in her attempt to get closer. Krax, seizing the opportunity, drew his blaster. Matt dove for cover, cursing under his breath. "Jew, what the hell are you doing here?" he shouted, returning fire. "Saving you from yourself, you stubborn human," she yelled back, ducking behind a pillar as laser blasts scorched the air around them. In the chaos that followed, Krax managed to escape. Matt and Jew found themselves pinned down by Zorg's reinforcements, forced to work together to fight their way out. As they finally stumbled to safety, adrenaline pumping and clothes singed, the dam broke. Weeks of frustration, misunderstanding, and unresolved tension exploded into a heated argument. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" Matt raged. "I've been tracking Zorg for months, and you just blew my best lead." Jew's eyes flashed dangerously. "Me? I was trying to protect you. You're clearly not thinking straight, running around like this when you should be resting, bonding. For the last time, Jew, I don't need to hibernate. This is who I am, what I do. Why can't you accept that?" "Because it goes against everything I know." Jew cried, her voice breaking. "How can I trust what I feel for you if our bodies don't sync up the way they're supposed to?" The anger drained from Matt's face, replaced by a deep sadness. Maybe we're just too different," he said softly. Jew's antennae drooped. "Maybe we are." They parted ways, each nursing a wounded heart and a battered ego. Matt threw himself back into the hunt, more determined than ever to bring Zorg to justice. But as he dug deeper into the arms dealer's operation, he uncovered something that chilled him to the bone. Zorg wasn't just dealing in weapons, he was trafficking in people, specifically, Linians. The blue-skinned aliens were highly prized in certain circles for their unique biology and the psychoactive properties of their skin secretions. Matt's blood ran cold as he made the connection. Jew had mentioned fleeing Lana, seeking freedom. What if she was a fugitive not just from her planet's rigid society, but from something far more sinister? His comlink chirped, displaying a message from one of his informants. Matt's heart nearly stopped as he read the words, "Zorg's men just grabbed a blue-skinned female bartender from the edge of the universe. Thought you'd want to know." In that moment, all of Matt's doubts and frustrations evaporated. Cultural differences be damned, Jew was in danger, and nothing else mattered. He checked his weapon, a grim determination settling over him. "Hang on, Jew," he muttered, striding towards the station's shadowy lower levels. "I'm coming for you." As he disappeared into the neon-lit underbelly of Nexus, Matt knew that this was more than just another hunt, it was a rescue mission, a chance at redemption, and possibly the key to bridging the gap between two very different hearts. The real adventure, it seemed, was just beginning. Matt's boots echoed on the metal grating as he crept through the bowels of Zorg's ship. The acrid smell of engine fuel mingled with something more sinister, fear. He could almost taste it in the recycled air. His mind raced, replaying every moment with Jew, her laugh, her wit, the vulnerability in her eyes. He pushed the thoughts aside, focusing on the task at hand. He had to find her. Jax, his mechanic friend, had managed to get him aboard using a stolen maintenance drone access code. The plan was simple, but risky: find Jew, get her out, and take down Zorg if possible. Jax was waiting in the docking bay with a ship, ready for a quick escape. Matt moved silently, using the shadows to his advantage. He bypassed security checkpoints, his knowledge of ship layouts honed from years of bounty hunting. He could hear muffled voices echoing from nearby corridors, a mix of guttural Grockner and clipped, efficient Saren. He reached a junction, 3 corridors branching out in different directions. Hesitation gnawed at him. Which way? Then, a faint sound reached his ears, a soft, melodic humming. It was a Linian song, one Jew had hummed absent-mindedly while mixing drinks at the bar. Hope surged through Matt. He moved towards the sound, his pistol raised. The corridor led to a reinforced door, marked with a warning sign in several alien languages, restricted access, biohazard containment. Matt frowned. What was Zorg keeping in there? He bypassed the electronic lock with a device Jax had provided, the door hissing open to reveal a large, dimly lit chamber. The air was thick with the smell of disinfectant and something else, something sickly sweet and unsettling. Rows of containment cells lined the walls, each holding a Linian. Their blue skin was dull and lifeless, their eyes vacant. They were hooked up to machines that seemed to be draining something from their bodies, a network of tubes running to large vats in the center of the room. Matt's stomach churned. He understood now. Zorg wasn't just trafficking Linians, he was harvesting them, extracting their psychoactive secretions for profit. It was a horrific, barbaric practice. His gaze scanned the cells, searching for Jew. Then, he saw her. She was in a cell at the far end of the room, her eyes closed, her body limp. Relief washed over him, followed by a surge of anger that threatened to consume him. He moved towards her cell, his hand reaching for the release mechanism. A voice stopped him. Going somewhere, bounty hunter. Matt whirled around, his pistol trained on the speaker. Krax, Zorg's Saren lieutenant, stood in the doorway, a sneer on his reptilian face. Behind him were 2 hulking Grockner guards, their weapons raised. Looking for someone? Krax continued, his voice dripping with malice. Too bad. She's indisposed. Let her go, Krax, Matt growled, his grip tightening on his pistol. Krax laughed. Let her go. You humans are so sentimental. She's far more valuable to us this way. Her essence fetches a high price on the black market. Matt lunged forward, firing his pistol. The Grockner guards raised their weapons, deflecting the laser blasts. A fierce firefight erupted, the chamber filled with the smell of burning metal and the screams of the captive Linians. Matt fought with a ferocity born of desperation. He dodged laser fire, using his agility to his advantage. He took down one Grockner with a well-placed shot to the chest, the other collapsing under a hail of blaster fire. Krax retreated, firing wildly as he moved. Matt pursued him, his anger building with each step. He cornered the Saren near the central vats, his pistol pointed at his head. Where's Zorg? Matt demanded. Krax spat on the floor. He's long gone. You're too late. Not for this, Matt said, pulling the trigger. Krax crumpled to the ground, his lifeblood staining the metal floor. He turned his attention to Jew, releasing her from her cell. She was weak, but alive. He lifted her in his arms, her body limp against his. Matt, she whispered, her voice barely audible. I'm here, Jew, he said, his voice thick with emotion. I'm going to get you out of here. As he carried her towards the exit, the sound of alarms blared through the ship. Zorg knew he was here. The escape wasn't going to be easy. Meanwhile, in another part of the ship, Lyra, an older Linian woman with a kind face and knowing eyes, watched the chaos unfold on a security monitor. She had been captured by Zorg months ago, but she had never given up hope. She knew that one day, someone would come to rescue them. She saw Matt carrying Jew, his face grim with determination. A flicker of hope ignited in her heart. She had to help them. She knew Zorg's ship better than anyone, including Zorg himself. She knew the secret passages, the hidden compartments, the shortcuts that could lead them to safety. She activated her comlink, sending a message to Matt's frequency. "Bounty Hunter," she said, her voice weak but clear. "I know a way out. Follow my instructions." Matt hesitated, glancing at the comlink. Could he trust this stranger? He looked at Ju, her face pale and drawn. He had no choice. "We're listening," he said. Lyra guided them through the ship, leading them through a maze of corridors and hidden passages. They encountered resistance along the way, but Matt fought them off, his determination fueled by the need to protect Ju and free the other Linians. As they neared the docking bay, Lyra's voice crackled through the comlink. "Almost there," she said. "But be careful. Zorg is waiting for you." Matt tightened his grip on Ju, his senses on high alert. He knew this wasn't over. The final confrontation was coming. He was ready. He would face Zorg, protect Ju, and bring an end to his reign of terror, no matter the cost. The shadows of Lana were closing in, but so was the hope for a brighter future. The air in the cell was cold and damp, the only light filtering in from a narrow slit in the wall. Ju huddled in a corner, shivering. Her head throbbed, a dull ache that was both physical and emotional. She remembered being grabbed from behind, a cloth pressed over her mouth, the world dissolving into darkness. Now, she was a prisoner, just like the other Linians in the hold. She glanced around the cramped cell, her eyes adjusting to the gloom. The other Linians were a mix of ages and genders, their faces etched with resignation and despair. They were the forgotten, the victims of Zorg's cruel trade. One of the Linians, a young woman with fiery red braids, approached Ju cautiously. "Are you all right?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. I've been better," Ju replied, forcing a weak smile. "What's your name?" "Reyna," the young woman said. "I was taken from Lana a few months ago. They said I was deviant, because I questioned the traditions." Ju nodded, understanding dawning in her eyes. "I left for similar reasons," she confessed. "I couldn't bear the thought of a life dictated by ancient customs." "They see our kind as nothing more than commodities," Reyna said, her voice filled with bitterness. "They drain us, exploit us, and then discard us like broken toys." "But why?" Ju asked. "What do they want from us?" "Our secretions," a voice rasped from the corner. An older Linian woman, her face lined with wrinkles and her eyes filled with a quiet strength, spoke up. "Our bodies produce a substance that is highly valued in certain circles. It enhances pleasure, amplifies emotions, it's addictive." "Lyra is right," Reyna confirmed. "Zorg is selling us to the highest bidder, turning our pain into profit." Ju's blood ran cold. She had known that Zorg was involved in illicit activities, but she hadn't imagined the depths of his depravity. She thought of Matt, his unwavering determination to stop Zorg. He didn't know the full extent of Zorg's operations, not yet. "We have to escape," Ju said, her voice gaining strength. "We can't let him get away with this." Lyra smiled sadly. "Escape is impossible. The cells are heavily guarded, and Zorg has eyes everywhere." "Then we'll make our own opportunity," Ju insisted. "We have to try." Meanwhile, Matt was tearing through Zorg's ship, his senses on high alert. Lyra's guidance was invaluable, leading him through a labyrinth of corridors and hidden passages. He took down guards with ruthless efficiency, his mind focused on one goal, rescuing Ju. Jax's voice crackled through his comlink. "Matt, I'm in position at the docking bay. The Stardust Drifter is ready when you are." "Almost there, Jax," Matt replied. "Just need to find Ju and get her out of here." He reached a large, reinforced door, marked with the same biohazard warning he had seen earlier. He knew this was where Zorg was holding the Linians. He bypassed the lock and burst into the chamber, his pistol raised. The scene that greeted him was even more horrific than he had imagined. Rows of Lineans were hooked up to machines, their bodies drained and lifeless. The air was thick with the smell of disinfectant and despair. He moved through the rows of cells, searching for Ju. Then, he saw her, huddled in a corner with the other Lineans. Relief washed over him, followed by a surge of anger that threatened to consume him. Ju, he shouted, rushing towards her cell. Ju looked up, her eyes widening in surprise and relief. Matt. He released her from her cell, pulling her into his arms. I'm getting you out of here, he said, his voice thick with emotion. We all are, Ju said, gesturing to the other Lineans. We can't leave them behind. Matt nodded, his determination hardening. Then we'll free them all. He turned to the other Lineans, his voice ringing with authority. I'm Matt, and I'm here to help you. Follow me, and we'll get you out of this hellhole. The Lineans looked at each other, a flicker of hope igniting in their eyes. Lyra stepped forward, her gaze steady. We trust you, she said. Lead the way. Together, Matt and the Lineans stormed out of the chamber, their makeshift rebellion gaining momentum. They encountered resistance along the way, but they fought back with a newfound courage, their desperation fueling their strength. As they battled their way towards the docking bay, Ju's mind raced. She knew that Zorg wouldn't let them escape without a fight. He would do anything to protect his precious cargo. She had to find a way to stop him, to end his reign of terror once and for all. She looked at Matt, his face grim with determination. He was fighting for her, for all of them. She couldn't let him do it alone. She knew Linean physiology better than anyone on this ship, likely even Zorg himself. She knew their strengths, their weaknesses, their vulnerabilities. And she knew how to use that knowledge to their advantage. Matt, she said, grabbing his arm. I have a plan. As they continued their fight towards freedom, Ju knew that the final confrontation was coming. They were prisoners of the past, haunted by the shadows of Lana. But they were also fighters, determined to forge a new future, a future where Lineans were no longer treated as commodities, but as individuals worthy of respect and dignity. The time for reckoning was at hand. Matt burst into the docking bay, his pistol blazing. Zorg stood before him, flanked by heavily armed Grochner guards. The Stardust Drifter was in sight, Jax waiting anxiously at the controls, the engines humming with readiness. But between Matt and freedom stood Zorg and his forces. Well, Reeves, Zorg sneered, his reptilian eyes gleaming with malice. I knew you'd come crawling back. Always the hero, aren't you? Let the Lineans go, Zorg, Matt growled, his voice low and dangerous. This ends now. Zorg laughed, a harsh, grating sound that echoed through the docking bay. Ends? It's just beginning. These Lineans are worth a fortune. You can't stop progress, Reeves. This isn't progress, it's slavery, Matt retorted. And I'm putting an end to it. He opened fire, taking down 2 Grochner guards with well-aimed shots. The remaining guards returned fire, laser blasts scorching the air around him. Matt ducked behind crates, using them for cover as he returned fire. Jax, get ready to take off, he shouted into his comlink. I'm bringing the passengers on board. Meanwhile, Ju, along with Lyra and Reyna, was leading the other Lineans towards the docking bay, fighting off Zorg's remaining guards. She knew that they were outnumbered, but she refused to give up. They had come too far, endured too much. As they reached the docking bay, Ju saw Matt facing off against Zorg, his back against the wall. She knew that she had to help him. She turned to Lyra, her eyes filled with determination. Lyra, I need your help, she said. You know Linean physiology better than anyone. Tell me how we can use our abilities to turn the tide. Lyra nodded, her gaze hardening. We can disrupt their neural pathways, she said. If we concentrate our energy, we can overload their senses, leaving them disoriented and vulnerable. Ju gathered the other Linians around her, explaining Lyra's plan. They closed their eyes, focusing their energy, their blue skin glowing with an ethereal light. A wave of psychic energy washed over the docking bay, disrupting the Grochner guards' neural pathways. They stumbled and cried out, clutching their heads in pain. Matt seized the opportunity, taking down the remaining guards with swift precision. He stood before Zorg, his pistol pointed at his head. "It's over, Zorg," he said. "You're finished." Zorg spat on the floor, his eyes filled with hatred. "You may have won this battle, Reeves, but the war is far from over. There are others like me, who will continue to exploit and enslave. You can't stop them all." "Maybe not," Matt said. "But I can stop you." He pulled the trigger, and Zorg crumpled to the ground, his reign of terror finally at an end. Matt turned to Ju, his face etched with relief. "Are you all right?" he asked, his voice filled with concern. Ju smiled, her eyes shining with happiness. "I'm fine," she said. "Thanks to you." He pulled her into his arms, holding her tight. "We did it," he whispered. "We're free." Jax landed the Stardust Drifter inside the ship, opening the hatch for them. The Linians started boarding the ship one by one, filled with hope and anticipation. As the Stardust Drifter soared into space, leaving Nexus Station behind, Matt and Ju stood on the bridge, watching the stars streak past. They had faced incredible challenges, overcome seemingly insurmountable obstacles. And they had emerged stronger, more determined than ever. "What now?" Ju asked, her voice filled with uncertainty. "Where do we go from here?" "Wherever we want," Matt replied, his arm around her shoulders. "We can start a new life, together. Help other Linians escape exploitation." Ju smiled, her heart filled with hope. "I like the sound of that." They found a new purpose in helping other Linians escape Zorg's network and other similar exploitative organizations. They used Matt's bounty hunting skills and Ju's knowledge of Linian culture to track down slavers and free their captives. Over time, their bond deepened, transcending cultural differences and biological incompatibilities. They learned to accept and appreciate each other for who they were, finding strength in their differences and building a love that was both passionate and enduring. They settled on Nexus Station, creating a haven for rescued Linians, a place where they could rebuild their lives and reclaim their dignity. They became known as the Nexus Bonds, a symbol of hope and resilience in a galaxy filled with darkness. Lyra and Reyna became integral parts of their community, helping to guide and support the rescued Linians. They worked together to create a new society, one based on respect, equality, and freedom. Matt and Ju's relationship became an inspiration to others, a testament to the power of love and understanding. They showed the galaxy that it was possible to bridge the gaps between different species, to overcome cultural barriers, and to create a better future for all. As they stood on the bridge of the Stardust Drifter, gazing out at the stars, Matt and Ju knew that their journey was far from over. The galaxy was vast and filled with challenges, but they were ready to face them together, their love and their bond stronger than ever. They had found their purpose, their home, and each other. And in the end, that was all that mattered.